morning, everybody. I'm Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HawkBlogger. And it is that time. It is that day. Every other week, we get to spend some time with Big Ray Roberts, even when he is traveling to Philadelphia on business, supporting the Special Olympics, doing all the great things that he always does. Big Ray, man, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. A little bit tired. The trip took a little bit of. Anytime I have to fly back east, I just take a pounding on my body, and so it's gonna take it. I'm here for three. I got here on Monday night, and I'm leaving on Thursday. It'll take all this time for my body to recover, and then I have to do the same thing when I get home.
Are you a good sleeper?
Oh man, no, I'm not really.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm up all night. Like when you sent me a message like in the middle of the night, I was just like, man, did he get the time like mixed up? But the crazy thing is that I was awake too, so it didn't
Yes.
matter.
Yeah, I mean, I had to worry about that a little bit when I was, in leadership positions, and I would be up in the middle of the night, so I'd just send things out. But people are like, "You're stressing me out, man. Don't send me things at 3 in the morning." And I'm like, "Well, I got nothing better to do, so okay, I won't do it." But
Well,
if you're
now
up,
now you
might as well
can
take advantage.
now you can schedule an email. You can write it up and stuff and schedule it to be delivered like in their waking hours. Because I work that way. Like from like early in the morning to about mid morning, I'm pretty good. And then from mid morning to about 4 in the afternoon, I can't focus on anything. But then like after 4 o'clock, I can get uber focused on stuff. And so then I'm like, oh, I got to send this email and blah, 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 blah. And so I always tell people like, hey, like if you get an email from me at that late, don't feel like you have to respond. That's just when my brain gets activated. And
Exactly,
so
exactly.
now on Outlook, you can like schedule it to be delivered during the times when they wake up and stuff. So I do it that way more now.
All right, Ray, before we get into the good stuff, the great stuff that we've got ahead, we've got some great stuff to cover first, which is if folks have not gone to ftnfantasy.com, this show is presented by FTN. Use promo code HAWKS, you get 15% off Fantasy Plus subscription or greater. I'm going to do later, even after Ray's got to jet, I'm going to spend some time going over some DVOA data, some tail the tape data that I just posted on hawkblogger.com. All the stuff I get as a subscriber to FTN, you can get it to less than $8 a month. It's a great deal, and you will not regret doing it. Also, want to welcome, we've got some new folks, part of the crew, part of the family. Neil Daly has joined as a new member. Folks, Star Performer. We've got Star Performer as a new member. We are like at 956 members on the channel. So we are just shy of 1,000 members. So if we can just get 40 more people on there, we'll hit the 1,000 mark. So let's do it. And Eric Tams is going to help us get there. He's gifted 10 Hawk Blogger memberships. So you can get a membership for free. So we really need just 30 more, probably at this point. We'll hit 1,000. So appreciate you, Eric. Appreciate everybody who's joining this community. All right, Ray, before we get into the official film breakdown, which is always so fun, talk to me about what was the game like for you against the Broncos?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Like I'm a fan first, and so I'm just like everybody else. But when the way the Seahawks started on offense, I'm not gonna lie, I was in the press box hitting the panic button already, and I think they ran like 20 something, 21, 22 plays in the first half, and like the way I was tracking them, about 10 or 11 of those plays were 0 to negative yards, so it could have been a sack or a penalty or what have you. I counted the one bobbled punt as one of those negative plays, and so I was a little bit. Not full out panicked, but panicked none the least, and a little bit surprised because I thought that with even in our lead up to the game, we played a lot of clips about Ryan Grubb talking about wanting to run the ball, about DK buying into that idea of running the ball to set up these one-on-one opportunities for the receivers and things, and then they started the game with 3 passes, and I was just like, man, it took me back to when I played in Detroit, and we would talk all week long about how this is what we're going to do with Barry, this is what we're going to do with Barry, and then the first 2 or 3 plays were like pass plays. And as an offensive, I would get so frustrated, Brian. Like I would go right to the sideline. I'd get on the phone to the offensive coordinator upstairs and be like, come on, man. Like I need to hit somebody. So like this is doing the regular, like as the season is going on. So I can't imagine as an offensive lineman in training camp where the contact is limited, not a whole lot of big time reps in the preseason. You're just biting at the bit to hit somebody I said biting at the bit to hit.
Yeah. I knew what you meant.
And so then to start the game that way, as for an offensive lineman, I'd have been like, "No, this ain't it. This is not it. Like I need to fire off. I need to try to put somebody on their back. I need to just put my face in the fan, so to speak." And so to start it out with the passing, it was kind of confusing to me. But luckily, they were able to right the ship on the offensive side. The defensive side, though, man, it just looked like what I thought we would see. On defense. I wasn't able to get the clips that I wanted this week, but there was a lot of clips where somebody was making an open field tackle. But if you look at the net of people that were coming to the tackle, it's something that we haven't seen. And so there were people, it's almost like the defense was working on a string. You hear that a little bit in basketball when you're playing zone defense. And they're like, hey, the defense has to work on a string. And so it felt like, and it looked like that for our defense. So there were guys that were doing the dirty work so that somebody else can come in and make the tackle, or someone was confident that the troops were coming so they could go hard for the tackle. And then if he missed, there were 3 or 4 other guys right there to make the tackle. And so to me, that's kind of what we haven't seen a whole lot of that in the last couple of years. It'd be one guy way out on the island by himself trying to make a tackle, someone would make him miss, then they pick up 6 or 7 yards. And on Sunday, man, you saw like a net of guys rallying to the ball to be in a position to make tackles. And so all of those things were really good to see. And those aren't things that are going to pop off on the screen. There's no data around that kind of stuff. No one's going to be breaking down the film and showing you that kind of stuff. But to me, those are the things that you can rely on. Those are the things that tell you like what they're doing is good stuff. Those are the things that say that the guys are bought in to what is happening. And so that's the foundation of greater things to come to me.
How do you feel? How are you able to kind of assess whether, an offensive line is doing poorly or the defense that they're facing is doing really well, or vice versa, right? Like how much can you say the Seahawks defense was doing really well versus how bad the Broncos? Like, I'm curious how you think about that.
Yeah. So one thing I do is I try to look at the reputation of each unit. If we're supposed to have a halfway decent defensive line, and they're supposed to have a halfway decent offensive line, and we're kind of winning the day, that says something. If their offensive line is beat up and they're playing a bunch of backups and they have 5 new starters and all that kind of stuff, then you kind of judge it with a grain of salt. And then I tend to look at individual players. I look at effort. I look at what they're trying to do, and if they're being able to get that done, like that kind of stuff. I thought that coming into the game, I don't know. I think there was some good thoughts about the Denver's offensive line. They thought it was improved from the year before. Mm-hmm. And then with our offensive line, with our defensive line, there were probably more questions than they had on their offensive line, because you had a rookie plan, you had some new pieces, a new defense, a new style of playing. And so the fact that they were able to execute what they wanted to do on defense, I think that speaks volumes about where this defense can go. This is just a foundation of what they can do, because I'm sure you haven't seen all that they bring to the table. And so in that regard, I would say the defensive line, the front 7 for the whole defense, really showed up to play the way that they want to play in this game. And then for us on the offensive side of the ball, they have some good players on their defensive front, but I don't know that our guards in particular started the game with focus and intention. Like I heard someone say the other during the post game, one of the defenders, I think Baker, the linebacker, they were talking about the tackling and rallying to the ball, and he said, "Man, we were playing with great intention." And then when he said that, I was like, "Man, those 2 guards didn't come out with great intention. I think they kind of came out. It's like, hey, it's just another game. I'm going to go out here and roll my hat on the field, and everything's going to be great. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh right, these dudes get paid to play, and they're trying to take our quarterback's head off. And so it took them a little bit of time to kind of rally and get that right.
Yeah, and we'll look at the tape here in a second. I think one of the things I've always wondered about is if I see a player getting beat one-on-one, like physically, then, whether it's the credit to the defender or the credit to the offensive player, to your point, reputation has something to do with that in the evaluation. But when a lot of times you see on offensive line play, a guy just goes the wrong direction or he misses his assignment. And like those kind of plays, they look the same in real time because you're like, oh, that guy just flashed into the backfield. But those, it's hard for me to credit like the defensive player for being excellent because there's nobody blocking him,
Right.
So I think that's probably part of it as well. But I think the Denver defensive line and edge rush group is better than most people's understanding of it from a reputation perspective. Zach Allen's not a bad player.
Right.
The guy they got, DeVare Levinston from the Jets, is not a bad player. Browning's a good player. Jonathan Cooper's a good player. So it was not the easiest opening act from a pass rush perspective.
Right.
They are a little bit of a lighter group. And so I was waiting for them to try to lean on him on the run game.
Yeah.
And we're finally, when they did, we started seeing some action.
Well, the thing is, I wish that when I was watching the film that I saw a lot of missed assignments, and I didn't see a whole lot of missed assignments. What I saw was really bad and poor technique. And the fact that they spent so much time focusing on the little things. When I watched, that was the one thing that I loved about watching Huff coach, who's the offensive line coach, is that his attention to the detail, to the smallest little things, because the little things are what's necessary for the bigger things to happen. And so when I saw like a guard with too much weight over his toes, or the center had too much weight on his hands, and then your hands get slapped down, and so there's no balance in what you do. Or we'll get to the safety play, and I'll explain on the safety what was happening, which was not a missed assignment. It was a lack of intent and a lack of awareness of what was happening. And to me, that says something about your approach to that particular game. Like if you're like, you should have been locked in on all these different things. And for whatever reason, I don't know that the guards, maybe there was a panic button that was hit because of the first couple of plays, but they did seem locked in at first. Because if you contrast that to how we saw, if you watch the film about how Charles Cross played, Charles Cross was locked in. Charles Cross was locked in, loaded up and ready to go. He was in the trench, ready for whatever had to come, and he played that way. And so I think if the two guards had showed up with that same type of intention, then I don't know you would have gotten off to such a slow start that way.
Should we watch a little Charles Cross, given that you just teased it?
That would be awesome, dude. I'm not even gonna tell you, Brian, when I saw some of the, unfortunately, on normally my clip game is a little bit better. But I was looking through the whole on the NFL.com. That's the only game that doesn't have the all 22. Yeah. And so I don't know if that's a Seahawks thing or whatever it is, but it really kind of slowed my ability to get the clips in that I wanted to get in. So
I know.
Well, we do have some stuff.
And I want to give a shout out to C Mike Spin Move, Griff Sturgeon helped me out finding the all 22 this week because it was hidden. But we've got some film to cover, so let's go ahead and start. Charles Cross Ray, who had the highest PFF grade of any tackle in all of football in week 1. We're going to watch some of his film here. Let me know anything you want me to highlight as we get going here.
I will say the one reason I wanted to, because he did have a great pass blocking grade too, but to me that was his calling card coming out of college. And so the fact that he had some success in the first game, that part wasn't as surprising to me. To the thing that was keeping him from being an elite left tackle was just the consistency in which he was pass blocking that way, but then the run blocking. Like he wasn't a big physical dominating run blocker in college, and he hasn't been up until this point in the NFL. And I think last year the injuries kind of slowed him down a little bit. But the clips that we see right here, these are the types of things that pop off the video and make other guys in the league take notice and go like, okay, this is a different beast that we're dealing with, because we did not see this in his college film. I watched a lot of his college film, and we haven't seen this in the few years that he's been with the Seahawks. So if we roll the tape, we'll see some of the stuff that he's doing.
Before we will do that in just a second, I wanted to ask you, I've heard this notion of splits between the offensive linemen, and I heard them talk about in the second half that the Seahawks tightened up their splits. I don't know, because I didn't go back and check. Can you talk for a second before we play this? Like, what does that mean, and what does it do when you have wider or narrower splits?
Well, you know what? It really is kind of like a coaching philosophy. So I've played with coaches that wanted tight splits, and I play with coaches that want wider splits. If you have a tighter split, you tend to condense the defense a little bit more. And if you're working double teams, you can get to the double teams a lot quicker and easier. But the problem with that is then it also restricts the lane and the holes that you're trying to create to run through. When you open your splits up a little bit, it obviously spreads the defense out a little bit, but it makes your double teams a little bit more difficult to get to, but it also creates just natural lanes and gaps in the defense that you can exploit through like the different angles that you take to run block and things like that. So it's not like some big, huge, like scientific thing. It's really a matter of like taste along, with the offensive coaches. And so as an offensive line, though, you tend to want to roll with what you do, because if you start changing them up, people find the tendencies and go like, oh man, when this guy tightens down, the splits, then this is more likely to happen. When their splits are wide, it's more likely to be this bank of plays. And so you can start to anticipate things. So you don't want to get into a habit of going, man, like I'm going to always pass block from a 2-point stance. I'm going to always run block from a 3-point stance. I'm going to always have a 2-foot split on the runs and a 2.5, 3-foot split on the pass. It's like you don't want to get into any kind of rhythm like that.
Helpful. All right, let's watch this first play. I think this is the Kenneth Walker touchdown run, if I'm correct. I'm not positive on that. So we'll watch it once through, and then let's tell me what you see here.
Well, this is when I evaluate a lineman. One of the things I evaluate is their ability to stay connected, because that gives you a chance to finish. There are some guys that have explosion. They come off the ball, they make contact, impact a player, and they may knock them back a yard or two, but they can't stay connected. They fall off, they peel off or whatever, and then that player can still run to get to the play. Well, Charles on these plays is showing elite ability to stay connected and finish blocks. So like in cells, it's always be selling. In football, it's always be finishing. And so in these blocks, he is finishing and staying connected on all of these blocks. And so that was something we did not see in Charles Cross in his first few years in the league. So if you watch, this is imposing your will on another man. Because imagine if he just ran into him and then let him go, he would be one of these two people chasing down the angle to maybe stop this play at the 2-yard line or something. You know what I'm saying? But this is one guy that you can 1,000% say is not going to be in on the play.
He blocked him
because
he's
on he's on his back with a 300-pound dude on top of him. So he ain't getting up. He ain't resurrecting from that death to get up and make that tackle.
I also want to just call out here, this is your rewind, but knowing how much Anthony Bradford and Laken Tomlinson, we're going to talk about their problems, I thought this was a nice rep from Anthony Bradford as well.
Yeah, here's another thing too. If you stop the film right there, this is another interesting coaching. This is another concept in our idea around running the football. Is if you start with Geno and you drew a line straight down to where Charles Cross is, exactly right, straight down at that angle, right there, and then you draw another line behind Bradford, and I think that is the tight end is in the hole. That is what, when you're running the football, you're trying to cut the defense in two different places to create a lane to run through. And if Stone Forsythe doesn't miss 49, this is one of the biggest lanes in NFL football I've ever seen in my life, because it's probably about 5 yards wide. And so when that's the reason you put in all of these motions, and this is the reason you try to outnumber people to one side, or this is the reason that you pin and pull people so that you can create these, that you cut the defense in two different spaces. So it's almost like you're separating the head of the snake from the body. And in that gap is where you want to run the football. And so when you talk about running lanes and creating space for a running back to run, this is a perfect picture of it. And then the other part of it is that in order to get explosive plays, you need people blocking on the second level. So the tight end here, Fant, I can't say he did the world's greatest block, but the fact that he tied the dude up long enough to make it difficult for him to get off of him and then make the tackle, you need those types of blocks downfield for a play like that to happen. It's not just the offensive line creating space. It's also those second level offensive players engaging the second level the defenders so that they disrupt the angle, or they create another lane for the running back to get to for that type of stuff to happen.
That was fun. Let's look at the next one. Let's see what we have on this play. You talk about staying connected.
Yes. Yeah. So let me just tell you something. If you roll this back to where they're in their stances, and this is going to come up again in one of the safety plays. This defender is a whole gap to the side of the flow of the play. And so they're asking Charles Cross to get his left shoulder to the left shoulder of the defender by himself. That is really hard to do. I remember when I played in Detroit and Warren Sapp for Tampa Bay, he would play a wide three technique like that, but then he would angle inside. And so they would tell the guard to go work with the center, and they'd go, Ray, you have to cut off Warren Sapp. I'm like, man, that's impossible, dude. Like, what are you talking about? This is like one of the greatest defensive tackles ever played the game. And I have to be behind him and then get to the other side to cut him off for the backside lane. And so back then, in the little 2-yard neutral zone, you could throw at a dude's knees, in the back of his knees and stuff. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not a dirty player, but I ain't getting fired either. And so I just kept hitting him in the back of the legs. And he goes, Robert's like, what are you doing? And so I put my arm around him, and I pointed to Jim Zorn, who was our offensive coordinator. I said, if you tell that guy to stop calling that play, I'll stop doing this. But until he stops doing it, I'm doing this every single time, because I cannot. There's no way on God's green earth I'm going to be able to pull and get that far around you, of all people. And so the fact that Charles did this, and then he stayed connected to then run him into another player and knock both guys down. That is a different Charles Cross. I promise you. This is not, if you look at tape from any point during his college years, any point during his first few years in NFL, we did not see this type of physical, strong, dominating play from him. And so this is the area of his game to me. When you are able to impose your will on a guy like this, when you're able to, people don't understand how this also impacts pass protection. Because this dude is getting drilled on his back time and time again. It's going to slow you down in pass rush. And so the data doesn't collect that. The data doesn't collect a dude's will and willingness to do something. And so that's why you have to run the ball. That's why you have to give the offensive line a chance to impose their will on a person, because it then slows down the pass rush. And then the data can say, like, oh, well, the win rate, this, that, and all this other kind of stuff. But it ain't talking about when this dude is patting his helmet because he's like, man, I'm getting smashed out here. And this is the universal sign for take me out. I need a break. So when they're doing this, when the defensive line is doing this, they're tired, they're getting worn down, they maybe don't like what's happening. And a lot of times, and especially in today's game, those dudes just want to rush the quarterback. So when you make it noisy, snot bubble game like this, like a lot of dudes are going like this. Like, yeah, let me take a break. Let somebody else take this butt kicking so I can just go rush the quarterback. And so you have to make them earn the right to get the third down to rush the quarterback.
Poor Jake Bobo right here.
No, he's like, I don't know what's happening right here. Yeah, but yeah, Charles did this like a few times in the game, and I promise you, he had more like put you on your back plays in this game than probably he's had combined in his NFL career.
It is a huge foundational step forward for him. Even to have one game. Let's hope he connects them for multiple games. All right. So on this play,
yeah.
what stood out for you there?
Yeah, well, the thing that stood out for me there is like in all of these plays, this is why playing offensive line is way more than just one big strong dude playing against another big strong dude. The angle that he takes. Because it's easy to go like, okay, 49 is what, 3 or 4 yards behind me. I just need to just go to where he is. But the floor of the play will make 49 like run to his right. So you have to take the right angle to put yourself in a position to block 49. A lot of young tackles will try to go to where he is, not realizing he's not going to always be there because he's flowing with the play. So you got to go to where he's going to be. So all those geometry classes you were skipping in high school and college, it plays out right here. You know what I'm saying? Like you'd be like, what am I ever going to know about a right angle and a 40-degree angle and all this other kind of stuff? Well, it's playing itself out right here because you have to go, where's my intersect point with 49? So I put myself in the best position to make this block. And so not only did he get himself in the best position, but the power that he has, he knocked the guy to the ground. Yeah, maybe 49 is off balance, is on 1 foot or whatever, but I still hit him and he went to the ground. And so that means that to me is just, it speaks again to like this different Charles Cross that we're seeing.
Am I right here that these are also what we call narrower splits relative to what we were seeing earlier?
Well, the guard and center splits look a lot tighter. The some of the tackle splits look almost the same, and it could be depending on the defensive front they have. This is more what we call a bare front. So you have both guards and the center are covered, and you have those 2 stand up defensive end outside linebacker dudes. So you have 5 down linemen. That's usually what we call a bare front. And so sometimes with that, you might close the splits just because you can get to the double teams and things like that a little faster.
So let's watch this again. Taking Alex Singleton, knocking him to the ground. So I have a feeling there's going to be a connective tissue with all the plays you pick, Ray. It's going to be when an offensive lineman knocks a guy on his face. And I won't ever object. I'll watch as many of those as we want.
Hey, Brian, I'm going to tell you, man, like when I played, you don't get those blocks all the time, but I played every single play to get that one block. Like when I would play against guys, they'd be like, "Are you not going to get me today?" I'm like, "Well, that's okay because we're going to run about 50 more plays, and I'm going to use every single one of those plays to try to get you on your back. And then if I get you on your back, I'm gonna use the rest of the plays to get you on your back again." Like that's just how that was like my approach to the game. And so to be able to see Charles Cross, like to see the work that he had put in during the offseason, to see how he was being coached, like attention to the details, being more violent with your hands, being a more physical football player, man, like this is a great start for him. So now it's just a matter of, can you repeat this? Can you be focused enough, play with that type of intention, that type of focus and precision and physicality as long as you're healthy? And I promise you, if he does that, like, I'm not saying that he's been a bust or anything like that, but I'm just saying been a top 10 pick, you will say like absolutely, and he will be on all the lists for Pro Bowl and depending on how the team does, like all pro, all that kind of stuff. If he maintains this, for the majority of the season.
All right, this is the last cross one, I believe. This is one of the goal line. We're going to see some bad goal line plays in a few seconds, but this is one of the good ones. What is it about this play that you wanted to highlight?
Well, a lot of times when you get into these double teams like this, and that linebacker just stays behind both, right behind, it's really hard to figure out who's going to like come off on the block. So sometimes you'll see both players leave the defensive tackle and go block the linebacker. And so I had this Howard Mudd, who was our offensive line coach here, would say 2-on-1 is better than none on one. And so in this situation, so in this situation, the patience of Charles to keep working the double team, but keep trying to get his left shoulder to the left shoulder of the defender. Because what you want to do is you want the defender's shoulders to turn first. You want their door to open first, because when that door opens, that helps you get to where you need to go to create this lane. If he gets Charles's seven to come back towards us, then he's probably going to split this double team and make this tackle maybe at the goal line or on the 2-yard line. But Charles is able to keep fighting through that, keep pressing his helmet and his 6 across this dude's chest to the point where he got a chance to then dump another guy on his back and keep finishing. Like when you can push a guy, another 300-pound guy, 5 or 6 yards off the ball, that is no easy feat. I don't care how good you are, and I don't care how good the other player is. I don't care how bad you think the other player is. If it's really hard to impose your will on another 300-pound guy like that. And the thing that I love about it is that I'm just telling you, I feel like this is a block where Charles may have stopped right here in previous years and just tried to like position block, but he kept driving his feet. And because he kept driving his feet, he and Tomlinson were able to push his double team right back into the lap of the linebacker. So then that makes the linebacker play more difficult. You can't see. This happened to Bobby Wagner a lot the last few years here in Seattle. The double teams were getting pushed back into the linebacker's laps. And then you say, well, he made the tackle 5 yards down the field. Well, what the heck is he supposed to do? He can't run through this double team to make the tackle. And that's the same situation that you put this linebacker in.
Before we move off this, and I want to make sure we get to these other plays before you got a jet here. Just looking at Bradford and Connor Williams here. Connor Williams helps out initially.
Right.
Bradford turns him outside, and then Connor Williams has to target that Cody Barton in space. I assume that's a tough block.
Well, that's the whole zone concept. That's the whole zone concept, though, right? You create these double teams at the point of attack, and then so you're usually working a first level player to a second level player, and so let's say the defensive tackle over Bradford slanted inside. The reason Williams is stepping to him is so if he slants inside, he would take that guy, and then Bradford would work up to the linebacker. And so you kind of set yourself up to handle whatever the defense is going to give you. And really on this block right here, this is another indication of Bradford's attention to the detail, because he has help to the inside. So why he shouldn't be even getting put in this situation with this guy, because he should be able to sell out more to this dude's outside shoulder because he knows he has help coming from the inside. And so but that is the whole reason for zone blocking, is so that you can pick up these movements that the defensive line does. You can create double teams there at the point of attack to then work to the second level. That's the whole basis of zone blocking.
All right, let's look at a couple not so great plays. This is the first safety, and this is when there was a hold on Anthony Bradford. He's right here. Anything you want to call out before I roll the tape here?
Yeah, so I want you to compare. This is the exact same block, just going the other way that Charles Cross had. When I said, hey, the guy's when we talked about the whole Warren Sapp thing, the guy's a whole gap removed from you to the side, to the flow of the play. And so Charles had to get his left shoulder to that defender's left shoulder, and he was able to do that. And then he got there and then drove him down the field and dumped him on his back. There's no difference in this block for Bradford and this nose guard. He has one gap removed. Bradford needs to fight like hell to get his right shoulder to this dude's right shoulder so that he can stop this penetration. And the problem is that Bradford got to the block and then just stopped thinking the dude was going to stop. The dude is not going to stop. He's running with the flow of the play. So right from the very beginning, he was already holding it. And to me, that's just the intention and the focus on the details of what's happening is lacking right here. Like he pretty much stops his block right here and tries to hold this guy up. This guy,
and to your point, his 7's going back. His door open.
Yeah, exactly. He's getting his 7 is coming back towards the screen, and he should be pressing to that dude's inside. Well, I guess it's his right shoulder now, but he's trying to hold him up right now. So he's holding right now. And then it just gets worse because this guy's going to keep flowing to the play, and it just makes it even more apparent. And so to me, that is like a lack of awareness of what you're trying to get done on the play. It's a lack of focus, and it's not playing with the intention that you need to play with, especially with yourself, with your feet inside the end zone. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to be so acutely aware of those things. Hey, we're gonna roll Gino out to the left. The guy already has leverage on me to the left. Man, I need to really like fight like hell to make this dude, at the very least, make him go behind me and go around behind me, because it's a longer route to get to Gino. He's probably not going to get there. But the shortest route to Gino is to go through my 7 and straight up the field. And that's where that's the door that you open. And that's the door that you have to slam shut in that situation, the way that Charles slammed it shut on the play that we showed earlier.
Can I ask you one question before we go to the next one? So where it ends up here is that you've got Connor Williams and Laken Tomlinson blocking one guy. And I'm curious, like, with your point about them starting here with this guy shaded inside of Bradford, why is Connor Williams, like with the guy so far out here, why is Connor Williams' job to go there as opposed to helping, at least initially, with this guy?
The only thing I can think of is that Tomlinson and 57 have the defensive lineman, and that I think that's number 49 that's over Tomlinson. Over the center. Those are their responsibilities. So if this linebacker over the center was the blitz, and then this defensive lineman stayed outside, then those two guys have those two guys.
I see. So you're saying if 49 here, if he was going to come in here on a blitz, that would be Connor's potential responsibility.
Yeah. And so the only other thing I could say is, like, on his way out, maybe Connor could have just stuck a hand out, his right hand out, just to kind of, as a traffic stop, to kind of occupy some space. But you're also banking on this being a quick flow, get the ball out fast, short, fast roll to the left. And so you're hoping that if Bradford takes a good angle and is sprinting down this line, even just sprinting straight down the goal line, that then you don't have this penetration and the ball is out. And so getting the ball out wasn't the issue. It was just this dude's technique of executing this block wasn't very good.
Yeah. All right. Let's see if we can sneak in 2 more. This is this is the other safety. So anything you want to say before I roll?
Yeah. So like when you start to roll the film, you'll see this safety up here walk down into the box. And when he gets into the box, you'll see that linebacker that's over the center. He's going to slide a little bit to his right. And so if I'm a guard, I'm taking in all that information and I'm going, okay, if this dude is sliding, if the linebacker is sliding to his right, there's a great chance that his responsibility is going to be to take this C gap right outside the tackle, which probably means this guy over me is going to slant inside, because you're not going to have 2 people rushing the same gap. You see what I'm saying? And so, and the fact that the safety is in there, you're like, man, they have all these gaps covered. So someone has to replace where the middle, see that linebacker slide outside. As soon as he slid over like that, you have to, in your brain, this is a stunt that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers used to run all the time with Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp. And so as soon as you saw Derek Brooks adjust his stance to be a little bit closer to the tackle, you knew this was coming. And so we had little calls that would make for it, so that everybody knew it was happening. And in this situation, Tomlinson either doesn't have his head up and has been aware of what they're doing, or he just totally whiffs right here. Because if he saw this guy slide over and was like, oh, the defensive tackle has to replace the gap responsibility. So that means he's going to slant down inside. So then you don't take some big wide step to the outside. You shorten that step up a little bit so that you can kind of butt him up right down the middle, and then you have contact with him right there on the line of scrimmage, and he's not just running free. You don't just whiff on him and he goes down. So again, this is an indication to me that the intention and the focus and the awareness and been locked into the details just wasn't there in the first half of this football game, and it cost them these points with these safeties.
So, just for folks that are following along here, you're saying that when this linebacker moves out here, basically everyone's going to have a gap responsibility in defending the run, and that him coming out here, that basically indicates his gap responsibility is going to be out here. This guy has to replace it because you can't have both of these guys going out here because it just leaves this massive lane right here. So like just deductive reasoning should have been, Laken Tomlinson expecting him to jump inside. Yes. And what about the fact that this happens relatively close to the snap? I mean, the timing of it, if you'd done that earlier, I guess it starts happening.
It's happening in time.
Pretty early.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially as soon as your first awareness should be when you see the safety come down into the box. Mm-hmm. The safety walks down and you're like, okay, now they're kind of crowding the box. So there's something that's happening. And then as soon as this linebacker, as soon as he takes one step, as his body starts to move that way, you go, okay, here it comes. They're going to do the I don't know what they call it. I think we may have called it a cross dog or something like that. I can't remember, but they're going to do that stunt, and you have a name for it, and you alert the tackle that is happening. And then, this should be like taking candy from a baby for the offensive line, but it ended up being taking candy from a baby for the defense because of the lack of awareness right here.
So what happens is Laken jumps outside, like and it just makes it an easy one for. If he had done his job, do we feel like this play? Like,
well, if he had done his job, I don't think it's going to go far, but he ain't going to get stopped in the end zone because
this guy probably makes the tackle, right?
Exactly.
Singleton,
yeah,
but he's making the tackle here.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
that's why when they say the game is a game of inches, it is a game of inches. That the linebacker shifted maybe 12 inches. The guard took a step probably 6 inches too far, and then the running back got tackled 3 inches from being out of the end zone. So it's a game of inches and then we lost that battle. And so they ended up getting 2 points out of it.
All right, last one. I'm going to let you go. This is the passing touchdown to Zach Charbonnet. I wanted you to at least take a look at this and talk us through it because there were pass protection issues all day. This felt like a rep where the offensive line did a pretty darn good job in letting Gino let a play develop. Anything you want to say before I roll this?
Well, the thing that's interesting is that when you have a receiving core like we have, they draw a lot of attention. So you'll see this is a weird coverage to me by Denver because their nose guard actually dropped the guy over Bradford, I think, actually drops out into coverage. And so I don't know, he had flat responsibility, but also you had I think Tyler was crossing one way, but JSN was coming the other way. So he drew a lot of the eyes of those defenders, and it allowed Charbonnet just to sneak out and get behind all of them because a lot of the attention is going to these three amazing receivers that we have.
So one of the things I noticed here is, Gino gets to his drop, and they're rushing 4. It's not like they're dropping everybody, but here's the nose tackle you're talking about.
Yeah.
The big boy out in coverage. I love that.
But then also you have a 4 because he drops into coverage. You have 4 to block 3 on that side. So we should be pretty tight. I think Stone got himself in a little bit of trouble at the top of this block, but for the most part, Charles is doing his thing on the left side, but you have 4 to block 3 on the other side. So that the in the little cat and mouse chess game, the Broncos just moved the pawn the wrong way on this one and kind of messed themselves up because you have JSN wide open right there. But because I bet Gino could see these other 2 dudes looking at him and just gave Charbonnet time to clear all that to throw a real clean touchdown right there.
Yeah. Not a great feeling if you're a Broncos fan at that point.
Yeah, not at all.
Well, Ray, I know you've got to run here to get back to your day job, and can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I mean, people in chat are freaking out how much they love this. So
Oh, cool.
we will take it every time we can. Learn something every single time. Any parting thoughts in terms of how much do you feel like? Are these correctable, or are these physical? Like, hey, like in Tomlinson and Anthony Bradford are just not good, or do you think there's reasons to believe they could turn this around?
I'll put it this way: Tomlinson, it surprised me because the dude, he's been in the league for a while, and so I didn't really expect his slow start like that. Bradford, on the other hand, I think there's a lot of pressure on Bradford to realize the talent that he has and for it to actualize more consistently. Because if you play like this, he's probably not going to be in that position long. And from what we've heard from McDonald, it's kind of a year-long battle between he and Haynes. You know, Haynes did get in for a few plays because Bradford got hurt early in the game, and Haynes went in for 2 or 3 plays and was fine in it. But I think that battle is going to go on all year long. And if this is how Bradford shows up, he's gonna bad play himself out of a starting position, and then Haynes is going to have a chance to come in and play. And I think maybe 2 reasons why that didn't happen in this game is, one, it's the first game, and so you're trying to give him space to kind of work it out. But then 2, when George Fant went down, you essentially would have had a rookie and Forsyth playing beside each other. And so even though Bradford is only his second year, he played 16 games or whatever it was last year. So he has a lot of reps under his belt. So it was better to have Bradford with Stone than to have Haynes with Stone in that situation. And in the first game, hey man, let's get into halftime, figure out what's going on, work it out, get back out there and do your thing. And they did a much better job in the second half running the ball. I think their protection, rate and percentages were a lot better. Gino had more time and space to throw the ball, all that kind of stuff. So for now, Bradford is still hanging on, but he has to be feeling Haynes breathing down his neck, because that dude is biting at the bit to play. He did nothing in the preseason to tell you that he can't play on this level and that he can't be successful on this level, and they have confidence in him. So yeah, they better get off to a much better start the next game and show themselves better in the first half.
Everybody, that was Big Ray Roberts for Big Ray's Rewind. Amazing stuff as usual, Ray. Have a safe trip back. Hopefully your body recovers and you find some way to sleep, because that always is helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to give a shout out to I don't know if they watched the podcast or not, but there was I had to get these flights late, and so I couldn't find the greatest seat. So I was in the middle seat on the exit row, but my knees were still in the seat in front of me. And the guy sitting beside me, his name is Shane Smith. He's from Longview, I think, Washington, or Des Moines, Washington. And he had the seat that didn't have a chair in front of him. And so after about 35 minutes into this flight, I had to stand up and go stand in the back with the flight attendants, because I'm like, my knees are killing me. And he came back and was like, hey, man, I didn't realize how tall you were. Why don't we change seats? And so this dude he saved my knees. He saved my back. He saved me just being miserable on this 3.5, 4-hour flight. And so we're going to get him some tickets to the game because he did that. But I just wanted to give him a shout out. I don't know if he hears or watches this. He builds bridges for a living. So he's worked on the 520 bridge, and he's going to Pittsburgh to do some testing on another bridge, all this other kind of stuff. And I just wanted to give him a shout out for making my trip just a little bit easier.
Man, I love that. He's building bridges on planes even, man. So
exactly.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love hearing that. People making other people's lives easier. We need a lot more of that. Also, folks, if you haven't already, make sure you check out Big Ray's Garage Grind. Fantastic podcast. Always great content there. And Big Ray's also on coverage of the game, so you'll hear him on the radio, you'll hear him on post game shows, you'll hear him all over the place. So,
well, hopefully by the end of the day, we'll have another podcast episode up. I recorded it last week. I'm just waiting for the edits to happen. I have some little clips of it that I'll post today, but hopefully by the end of the day, the new podcast will be up, and the focus is on the power of our words. So, so make sure you tune in and listen to that. I have some great stories to tell, and I think it's great content.
Love it. Love it. I will be sure to listen to it. All right, Big Ray. Thank you so
much.
Bro. Have a safe trip back, brother.
All right, big dog. Right. Peace.
All right. That was Big Ray Roberts. Man, it does not get better. As a person, as an analyst, as a former player, He's smart. He's kind. He's mean as hell. It's a great combination. It's a great combination. And so we'll be bringing you Big Rays Rewind every other week through the season as best as our schedules will allow it. And I would be crazy to not remind everyone and thank FTN Fantasy for presenting this episode. You can get 15% off FTN subscription with promo code Hawks. You want to do that with Fantasy Football Plus or greater. That will get you Stats Hub. It'll get you DVOA. And I'm about to show you a little bit because we're not done. I'm not going to finish right there. I could do a separate episode, but I'm just going to roll right into it. I'm going to give you guys an early look at the preview, first look of tail the tape between the Seahawks and the Patriots. If you got to run, you run. If you want to stick around, stick around. But I'm going to spend at least a little bit of time walking you through what I've found in previewing these two teams. And so first things first, we are going to talk about DVOA because that is what we get from FTN because I'm a subscriber. So I get the bonus of being able to do that. And here, we'll put this in a little bit larger view. Here's hawkblogger.com. If you haven't been there before, you should absolutely go. And I'm not going to read the whole article, but I am going to talk you through a few different things that jumped out to me. So first of all, if people didn't pay attention to the Patriots game against the Cincinnati Bengals, and you just saw the score, you would say, oh man, the Patriots beat the Bengals. They beat Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson, and the Bengals and the Patriots suck. They have Jacoby Brissett and nobody else. Maybe the Patriots are pretty good. Well, that's partially true. I think the Patriots are pretty good, especially defensively. I think Jacoby Brissett is the definition of a league average quarterback, makes pretty smart decisions, can use his legs sometimes, not going to make a ton of crazy mistakes. But if you actually watch that game, which I did, and then look at some of the underlying numbers, there's some reasons to have skepticism. So actually, before I even go to the DVOA, let me show you this chart that was, I thought, a good one that was posted about EPA, expected points added, gained or lost based off of turnovers. And to the right means you got good turnover luck on offense. To the left means you got bad turnover luck. Notice the Patriots right here at the farthest to the right. They had incredible turnover luck. And what does that mean? Well, they recovered one of their own punts, a fumble from Charlie Jones on the Bengals punt returner. That certainly helped. They also had a situation where Mike Gesicki caught a touchdown. They were all celebrating. It looked very clean in the moment. And then on replay, they saw that the ball moved. And so it got called back. Very next play, Joe Burrow hits his other tight end, I believe his tight end, and he's rumbling, looking like he's about to score a touchdown. The ball gets knocked out at the half-yard line, Earl Thomas style, and the Patriots recover. So there's some relatively good fortune things that happened to the Patriots in that game. And they won 16-10. It wasn't like they did anything like the Saints or the Vikings or anyone else did in terms of winning by a lot of points or scoring a lot of points. And they also got, I think, a really nice performance from Ramondre Stevenson, the running back. But the thing to be aware of with the Patriots run game is that almost every single one of those 120 yards rushing from Ramondre Stevenson came after contact. In fact, the Patriots had the worst performance in terms of run blocking, in terms of yards per contact, yards before contact, I should say. They actually gave up a negative yards before contact, meaning that the Bengals on average were hitting the ball carrier behind the line of scrimmage. Worst in the NFL. So the Patriots offensive line did struggle. There were a couple points of strength, but wasn't great. And so this really was a matter of some good fortune on turnovers, a really solid, gritty game from their running back, and protecting the football. So like they were a solid. I think the other thing, if you watch that game, is the Bengals just looked bad. They looked like they were not ready to play. Jamar Chase looked checked out. He was first game since his hold-in, hasn't gotten his contract, didn't get targeted for the whole first quarter, I don't think. It just was like they didn't have T. Higgins. It was not an impressive game from the Bengals in any way, shape, or form. So when you look at DVOA for this matchup, the things that I think really stand out are, despite the Patriots' run defense being good, they were 29th in the NFL in DVOA for run defense. That's not good. And I've got some other numbers there I'll talk about. Also interesting is that the Seahawks offense was 7th in DVOA and 5th in passing. That is pretty surprising for those of us that were like, man, the passing offense just wasn't what we needed or wanted. But I think that there was also some pretty big moments. The Charbonnet touchdown was a big play. And then there was a few explosives in there, and we'll see. I guess from a success rate standpoint, especially in the second half, when they passed, it was generally productive, but it just felt like tenuous, I think is the best word I can use for it. The other thing to call out here is that from a DVOA perspective, Christian Gonzalez is their kind of top corner. He followed around Jamar Chase. I think it was like 87% of the time he guarded Chase, and I got that from FTN as well. And they ranked 27th in the NFL through week 1 in defending wide receiver 1. So despite the fact Christian Gonzalez is well regarded as a cornerback, he had mixed results against what was a mediocre Jamar Chase in that first game. So those are a couple things that I wanted to call out there. Offensively, a couple quick things here. The Patriots, there's a reason this is this is all red, like the Patriots defense comes into this game with a good quality level, a good quality player at every level. Keon White is a beast along that line. He's 290 pounds. They can play him at any position. They can absolutely decide we're going to have him key on Stone Forsythe, or we're going to have a key on Laken Tomlinson or Anthony Bradford or whoever else they want. And he's going to give good offensive lineman challenges, let alone guys with some problems. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. Their linebacker crew, I think it's physical, it's fast. And then their cornerback trio is pretty darn good. So there's not going to be necessarily a big advantage for the Seahawks, other than I do think Christian Gonzalez is not Patrick Surtain, and that DK Metcalf will potentially have an easier time going against the second-year corner than he did against Surtain. And even against Surtain, DK dropped, at least one and arguably two passes that he normally would catch. And I think his game would have looked a little different if he had made those plays. So a couple things there, just, relative to this game. I will say that, again, this is the green, it stands out here, is on the running game. And so you look at rush EPA, the Seahawks have a pretty big advantage there relative to the Patriots defense in defending the run. The Bengals just didn't run the ball, even though they were doing pretty well run. They only ran it 16 times, had 70 yards on 16 carries, and it just was something that they didn't return to. One of the things that I got, again, another FTN-ism, is that as I scroll down here, the Bengals ran inside zone 38% of the time on their run plays, and they ran power. Power is when you have someone pulling and usually another tight end kicking out or something like that. They ran that on 25%. Well, On the Bengals power plays, they were successful 100% of the time running against the Patriots. So this is likely getting to the edge of that Patriots defense and getting additional blockers, creating that edge. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit more power from the Seahawks. They did it 9% of the time against the Broncos. They were 100% successful in their 9% of power plays that they ran. So I think power could be a part of what they look at doing here for the Seahawks. I think the run game is certainly going to be a big deal again in this game. Wrapping up quickly here. This is a look at the defensive side. And if you look at this, the Patriots offense is overmatched against the Seahawks defense. And this is the number 1 DVOA defense in the NFL. It is the number 1 graded PFF defense in the NFL. I don't have to tell you all that there's playmakers at every level, and not only every level, but there's playmakers, there's multiple, and they're inside and outside. There are some real weak points on the Patriots offensive line. The Patriots have a real problem at left tackle. They might have the worst left tackle situation in the NFL. Their starter last week was pulled after 6 snaps. His first 6 snaps, he gave up a pressure on 6 pass rush snaps. He gave up a pressure on every single pass rush snap he was in the game for. He had a 0.0 pass block grade in PFF. The guy that they brought in for him was not that much better. Their right guard had a 17.5 pass block grade, so there's a weakness there as well. And I think that David Andrews, their center, is a pretty good player. He had a good grade, but I don't think the Bengals had really anybody on the inside of that defensive line that worries anybody else. So I think the Seahawks present a very different challenge than what the Bengals did. Now, Trey Hendrickson is excellent, and he created pressure on the outside, and he's better than any edge rusher the Seahawks have. I'll say that. But I think collectively, the Seahawks defensive line and edge players is a much, much better group than what the Bengals roll out there. And that's not even accounting for the fact that Mike McDonald is light years different and better than as a play caller and a schemer. So the Seahawks, I think one of the most important numbers to look at here is the rush defense. And from a rush EPA perspective, the Seahawks were a top 10 rush EPA. They were 13th in yards per rush. The concern there is that they were 20th in explosive rushes given up. And so there were a couple of gotchas, and Mike McDonald talked about specifically there was a duo. Duo is when you have 2 offensive linemen both double team a defensive player, and there was a play. Literally, it's actually I think it's the second series of the second half where Kayvon Wallace later on, a couple plays later, forced a fumble, I think on Jaleel McLaughlin. But Jaleel McLaughlin on this duo, he ran 15, 20 yards, whatever it was, up the middle on a duo play. And Mike McDonald said there's a couple of those they want to play better. So the explosives is a concern. And that's something that, Ramondre Stevenson is going to test the tackling of the Seahawks. And even though the Seahawks were flying everywhere, they missed a fair amount of tackles. It just happened to be that there was someone else to clean it up. They need to play that same way against Stevenson. They have to absolutely get into, gang tackling, team tackling to make that success. If they can slow down Stevenson, it's not an easy thing because you got to beat the block and you got to beat him. Then the Patriots really just, they're toothless on offense. The receiver crew is not great. No offense to Jalen Polk. I like the guy. I wish him well. But that receiver crew is not scaring anybody. Jacoby Brissett, he can run with the ball a little bit. He ran 7 times against the Bengals. So that's something to be aware of. But, this should be a situation where the Seahawks really focus on slowing down the run, just like they did against the Broncos. By the way, the Broncos, better run blocking offensive line and very good running backs themselves. I think Stevenson presents a different type of running threat. He is more of a bulldozer, more of a tackle breaker. But the offensive line is nowhere near as good as the Broncos. So I think this is a game where, you got to mix it up inside. They've got to slow down that running game. And then if they do, I don't see how that offensive line is going to hold up in pass protection against what Mike McDonald and the Seahawks are going to be bringing after them. I think it could be a long day for them if the offense can just be patient. The offense has got to be patient in this game. It's okay to punt the ball in a game like this. The Patriots scored under 10 points 6 times last year. They only scored over 20 points 4 times. 17 points might be more than enough to win this game. So you just got to make sure you're not giving you're not giving the Patriots easy plays, but easy points, I should say. But from an overall perspective, like the talent advantage and the matchup advantage is pretty heavily in favor of the Seahawks. So I will wrap there and just say, if you haven't already, you can see all of this data at hawkblogger.com. Tail of the tape is up every Wednesday for you. And you want to head over to FTN Fantasy. A lot of the data that I just showed you comes from FTN Fantasy, all the DVOA data. You can get EPA data there. You can get matchup data, all sorts of stuff. Use promo code HAWKS, gets you 15% off. You're going to want to make sure you get Fantasy Football Plus package or better. That's what gets you DVOA. That's what gets you Stats Hub. It's less than $8 a month. It's just a screaming deal. So I'm so happy to bring it to you guys, and happy to be a subscriber myself, and will continue to be forever and for always, because it's data you can't find anywhere else. All right. If you haven't given the show a like and click subscribe, please do so. Appreciate you doing it. If you haven't signed up as a member, we're just like 30 members short of 1,000 here on YouTube. And we're going to continue to do more members only chats and members only stuff. So want to make sure we get as many people in the member group as possible. If you've let your subscription lapse, now's a great time to renew, stay part of the crew. Would appreciate it. And also head over to patreon.com/hawkblogger. That is where you get all the audio versions of Hawkblogger Mornings. That is where I'm going to go post this podcast in its audio version with all the audio equalized and sweetened. Beautiful there for you. So patreon.com/hawkblogger also gets you to the Slack channel where the conversation continues. If you like the chats here, you'd love the Slack channel. So patreon.com/hawkblogger. All right, folks, take care. I will see you later today. Today is a Mike McDonald press conference day. It is some players will be made available day, and it's also a first injury report day. So I will have that for you this afternoon, and then Real Hawk Talk tonight with Evan Hill and Jeff Simmons at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Lots of content coming your way. Appreciate you all for tuning in. Take care. I'm Brian Emhauser. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings.